Hey everyone, it's very glad to be here and see so many people on this stage or the stage over there, and very excited to be here talking with developers or hackers about IPFS and Filecoin. So my name is Longfei, and I work with Protocol Labs as a developer advocate for Filecoin and IPFS. So today I'm going to basically give a technical introduction about IPFS Filecoin, basically just trying to give enough knowledge and about how you're going to build application during the hackathon for on top of the IPFS and Filecoin. And so let's first talk about how everything gets started. So as I mentioned earlier, that I work with Protocol Labs. So Protocol Lab is an R&D team which is building open source toolings and services for the Web3 services. And the first protocol that we started building is IPFS. It's back in 2014, 2017. It's the peer-to-peer network and for sharing files over the distributed network. And then after that, we start building the Filecoin on top of IPFS. And it's a decentralized storage that we intended to store the valuable humanity data on Filecoin. Because Protocol Lab is more of the research and development team, so we need a Filecoin foundation to push forward the Filecoin community ecosystem growth and then the marketing. So that's all we're working together as the open source team for the IPFS and Filecoin. So the agenda today, I'm going to focus on first give a little bit introduction about what is Filecoin and what is IPFS. And because I know the hackathon is coming for the next couple of days, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's the current use case of our ecosystem and some of the possibilities and then the future plans for Filecoin IPFS. Hopefully that will be some of the reference or inspiration for the hackers to know what you can build on top of IPFS and Filecoin. And obviously you need to know how to develop on top of it, like what tools you can use. And thanks for Polygon, thanks for Graph, they already introduced some of the NFT storage, Web3 storage, and ceramic. I mean, that's great. I like to see that all the projects are still building things together. That's good to see. And obviously, I'm going to talk about them a little bit later as well. And eventually, like we have a lot of events, a lot of hackathons going around globally. So if you're interested, and you can know more after you know about toolings or even after this hackathon. First, let's look at the IPFS. So what is IPFS? It's we call it Interplanetary file system. So it's basically a peer-to-peer network that you can share and pass all the files across we said, interplanetary. But like why we say it's interplanetary? Because originally we all believe that we want to build a network that it will work, we'll upgrade the network that will work even when the web stretched across global. And that's what the team's vision and goals to build. And in nature that IPFS is designed as distributed, which means you don't need a central server, and you don't need to download your files, download your website from a central server. So obviously, it's going to be more resilient, and there's no 404 anymore. So in order to understand how IPFS work and why IPFS is decentralized, so it's better to understand how to adding and getting a content over the IPFS network. So the process is different because on IPFS network, we're basically obtaining and getting a content by CID, so which is a content-based retrieval. And it's more of a resilient against what you can get is what exactly you want. So the process is first you upload your content to the IPFS network, and you obtain a unique ID, which we call a content ID. And then you will publish all this information, content, along with the content ID over the network. It will be stored into peers, DHT table, which we call distributed hash table in each peer. And eventually, when you're trying to download that data, DHT table is where you go to query how to get your content and where to get your content. So obviously, I've been talking about this peer ID a lot, and it's actually, I mean, the content ID a lot. It's an essential part of what we call content addressing. And IPFS is addressing your content by what it is, instead of where it is. So if we think about like how we upload the content, how we retrieve the content currently in the Web2 world, So you will see first, let's look at if you're looking for the content on your computer locally, you basically go to a certain path in your C drive, whatever the drive, to look for the content. It's basically where you're storing that content. And it's the same thing for the web too. Like, think about if you go to the website, if you downloading some content, obviously you go into the URL, and that's which server is storing your content. But you don't really know that your requested content is the same as what it was storing before. But with IPFS, it's different. We basically accessing the content by what it is. So you're passing the CID, which is the unique identifier for the content, and retrieving it. You don't really care where it's stored, because in the distributed network, it could be stored in one or multiple nodes. So eventually, you will get exactly what you ask for by the content ID. So, and then the content ID obviously is very important for content addressing. It's actually, you can think of as a unique cryptographic hashed fingerprint for your content. So because we say it's a fingerprint, it's unique. And whenever you want to retrieve the content, you can grab the original content and use the same cryptography hash function. You will get exactly the CID as you uploaded before, which means it's verifiable. If you have original content, and if you retrieve it using that CID, you know and you can verify, is this what I'm requesting for from the IPFS network? And also in the peer-to-peer network, the peer is the essential part of the network that for nodes to be able to discover each other, to be able to share and then store the content across the network. So all this achieving by adding the different module to the peer. So for example, that it's because it's a peer-to-peer network, we have an essential part was lead P2P as part of the peer that handling the networking into all the peers in the whole peer-to-peer network. And also, I mentioned earlier that how to discover content and how to download content is actually achieved by the DHT table, which is also part of the feature of peer. And eventually, you need to download the content over the peer, which is achieved by the bit swap protocol in the IPFS peer. And then we're putting all this together in the IPFS peer, so to achieve the distributed file network. And I want to take a little bit of time to talk about DHT because it's very essential to store and then to discover content over the IPFS network. So DHT stands for Distributed Hash Table. And then it's actually essentially just a key value pair that's stored in each node or each peer. And you can associate it as a photo book. Then you can go and look at how you can connect to certain people, and then like what the ID for that people. The difference is in the distributed network, every nodes maintain that DHT, and that will be used whenever you want to download data. So think about I said earlier that it's a key value pair in the table, and it's essentially just a peer ID and a content ID. So if you want to looking for content over the IPFS network, you need to do two things. First is you look into the DHT table and then find out who has, so you're looking for the content ID and you find out who has this content ID. And then you are looking for the DHT table and see how do I connect to this peer ID. So essentially you will know where you can find your data and how to connect to the peer to get your data. So that's a very essential part of the content routing in the IPFS network. And the way that we use IPFS network now is very easy, but it's also very different. You can basically choose to use IPFS according to your own needs. So first, you can run your own node, host all your content, and then serve to your clients. But you have to maintain the infrastructure. You have to make sure that your IPFS node is keep running and then serving the content to your clients. And also, if you want to increase the usability and increase the efficiency of the IPFS network, you can run a IPFS cluster of nodes, but also maintaining the infrastructure will be a little bit challenging for the team. So for some of the team that you don't want to maintain the infrastructure, you don't want to making sure that all the nodes are running and connecting well, you can use the pinning service. What is pinning service is you can ping your file to the pinning service of the IPFS node. So they will make sure they serve your content over the network, but it also means that you need to rely on those paying service. Or otherwise, you can just throw the content into the IPFS node, and then hoping that your content is super popular and then everybody accessing it. So it will be expressed into the network, and it's easy to retrieve. And these are the options that you can use IPFS. But because I mentioned earlier that you need to use all this or that, but it's not essentially very verifiable or reliable. But maybe we were wondering, is there any other options, like any alternatives that's more reliable and then verifiable? And that's Filecoin coming into the picture. So Filecoin is the storage network that we designed for Web3 and then for Web2. So essentially, we built Filecoin compatible with IPFS, and so it will be utilized the advantage of content addressing over the IPFS network. And we're also integrating Filecoin with a lot of the Web3 blockchains like Ethereum, Polygon, and Near, and we're also working with a lot of Web3 teams that you making Filecoin IPFS available if you're building your application with any of the stack into the Web3 world. And why is it different? Why is Filecoin different as IPFS? Is adding another layer onto IPFS, which is the crypto economy incentive for the storage providers in the Filecoin ecosystem, making sure that they're saving the content over the Filecoin network, and then it's be verifiable and then reliable. And then we're also growing Filecoin massively, because now we're almost reaching like 18 gigabit of a capacity across the network, which is huge, and then means we're ready for the massive adoption on the either Web2 world or Web3 worlds. So how it's different for Filecoin and IPFS to store content? Because in order to provide the verifiability over the Filecoin network, storing data on Filecoin is a little bit different as IPFS. So basically, it's the storage clients are making storage deals with miners or storage providers. So the storage provider has to make sure that they constantly saving the data, constantly providing the verification for the clients, so they will be ensure that data is safe and secure. All those is achieved first by storage provider needs to stake certain file token, which is filled as collateral, so they can be ensure to providing the verifiable and reliable storage. And then also, storage provider need to provide the proof, the cryptographic proof that they are storing the unique content, a copy of your data, which we call a proof of the replication. And then also over time, the storage provider need to be able to provide that they have been storing the content constantly over the time. And so they submit the proof of space-time to chain. So all these proofs are going to be recorded and be able to verify it over the Filecoin blockchain. So I've spent a little bit of time talking about what IPFS and Filecoin is. So IPFS essentially is a protocol to share your files and your data across the distributed network. And it could be work with any distributed network, any like storage network. Obviously, Filecoin is going to be the best match with using with IPFS and Filecoin. So you can take advantage of the faster retrieval over the IPFS, and then you also be able to use the advantage of long-term persistent and the verifiability storage on the Filecoin network. So by saying that, I will highly recommend all the hackers, developers, if you're building during this hackathon, use IPFS and Filecoin together, then you'll be able to take the full advantage of the features, the features from both protocols. And I'm going to introduce some of the tools that you can use that were without actually touching the IPFS and Filecoin, but be able to store your data over the two networks. All right. So next, I'm going to go through a little bit of an ecosystem use case. Hopefully, that's going to be some inspiration for the hackers to know what you can build over the Filecoin IPFS network. Let's look at the picture first. And then we have a growing, very fast ecosystem around IPFS, and a lot of different projects are building on it. For example, the web hosting services and the NFT and gaming metaverse, and also some of the content creation are created over the IPFS network. Also, Filecoin network is also growing very strong, And we have a lot of data set onboarded on Filecoin, either through the Web3 applications or Web2 data set. So for example, in Web3 applications, there are like NFT platform and content live streaming and music platform built on Filecoin. And then for the Web2, and there are a lot of the enterprise company, they are storing their large data set on Filecoin. And I will give a little bit introduction later on the slides. So overall, that Filecoin storage has been growing for Web3 and the Web2 worlds. I will just go through a couple of the use case. For example, that obviously NFT and gaming, metaverse are growing super strong over the Filecoin and IPFS network. And we have a lot of application building on top of it. For example, Mona is building a marketplace for the 3D artwork. And OP Games, it's a gaming platform. They're building the gaming community to bring all the game builders or gamers together, so to explore more opportunity and a more interesting game. Metaverse AI, so they're using the AI technology to bring the VR and then to bring all the metaverse together to the users. And also, obviously, NFT marketplace and NFT content creation, as well as some of the NFT infrastructures or toolings to make NFT developers easier, are all building on top of the IPFS Filecoin. And apart from NFTs, there are also a lot of other content creation platform. They're storing the data on Filecoin and IPFS. Hadoop 01 is one of the live streaming conference that are using IPFS Filecoin, and also a couple of the platform that's like live streaming music and the music sharing platform are also building on IPFS and Filecoin. Also, FM is storing the videos and everything on IPFS and Filecoin. These are the use case that you can use to take the Filecoin IPFS as decentralized storage. Also, I mentioned earlier that not just Web3, but a lot of Web2 companies are storing the data on the Filecoin network for the long-term and safer verifiable storage. And for example, Internet Archive, they are storing and backing up the data for the website, public website, and documentations on Filecoin, so to be able to provide to the public access. And then Zora is also storing their climate data on Filecoin, so it would provide it to their researchers to access. And also, the Seoul Foundation is storing the testimony data over the Filecoin. All this are data set, and we also have more use case that I didn't put it on top of. For example, that we are working with New York City Public Data to store the data on, back up the data on Filecoin as well. So all this are example of Web2 of use case, or as well as Web3 use case. But apart from the use cases, I want to also talk about some of the social goods initiatives that from Filecoin that I think is very, very important, because it's going to essentially bring a huge impact into Web3 or maybe our society in general. Filecoin Plus is the program that incentive that we're storing the valuable and on Filecoin. So here, because Filecoin is incentive storage provider to verify, to accept the valuable data sets for humanity on Filecoin. So we give them 10 times of the possibility to claim rewards to get the block reward from Filecoin storage provider. And also it has the console to constantly verify and ensure that your valuable data are storing on Filecoin Plus. And another very interesting and program that I'm very excited about is Filecoin Green. Filecoin Green is the initiative that's trying to make a Filecoin blockchain as carbon neutral, maybe eventually carbon negative. So Filecoin Green has this kind of a Filecoin energy dashboard that will display all the electricity consumption from all the storage providers over the Filecoin network. So we bring up the bar that make it transparent for all the storage providers, all the miners in the network about the electricity consumption. And besides that, Filecoin Green is also partnering with storage providers as well as the renewable energy company. because we're trying to encourage the storage provider from Filecoin network to use more of the renewable energy instead of like electricity and everything. So essentially, Filecoin Green program is trying to make Filecoin as sustainable as possible. And I also, because we have a lot of hackers and developers here, I also want to talk about what's coming next for Filecoin. And then essentially, Filecoin is building the foundation for decentralized internet. We're achieving that by making the 4 key components. The first, obviously, is providing the verifiable storage. And we have been doing that since the mainnet launch, and then we're reaching to the 18 gigabyte of storage, which is already massive. And then the second is retrieval. Because the team is trying to building and then providing the CDN quality retrieval market over the network. And currently we have a Saturn network is already launched the testnet. And I think programmability over the Filecoin is the most looking forward features that over Filecoin. And I will talk about next slides. And eventually is the computation of the Filecoin, and the team is working on that as well. So this is the most important part that Filecoin team is keep building and working on. So I will just focus on the FVM a little bit here, because it's one of the most looking forward features on Filecoin network. So essentially that FVM is going to bring the programmability to Filecoin network. So either with the EVM compatible smart contract development or a native Filecoin smart contract system. So eventually, Filecoin storage providers, Filecoin developers can build everything on top of the Filecoin with storage, with smart contract, with computations over the data. All this is going to become possible over the Filecoin. So the team behind it, our core team, is actually splitting the development process into different milestones. And recently, we released the first milestone, which will give the Filecoin nodes the ability to run our native actor, which is smart contract, over the FVM. And by the Q3 of this year, the FVM will bring the ability of writing the EVM compatible smart contract and deploying it to the Filecoin network. And by the Q4 or maybe early next year, we will have the ability to support both EVM compatible smart contract as well as native Filecoin smart contract. So I think those FVM is the most exciting things that are happening in the Filecoin ecosystem, and all the partners, all the ecosystem are looking for it. So stay tuned, and I think by Q3 you'll be able to try smart contract on Filecoin. All right. I hope all those use case and all the initiatives that we're doing will give you guys enough information on how or what you can build on top of IPFS Filecoin. And if you need more inspirations, you can also check our website, Hackathon website, hackathon.filecoin.io, to look at there's a part we call a Hall of Fame. It's all the winners from the past hackathon. And then you can get more inspirations on what they are building and what's the whole ecosystem of building on Filecoin and IPFS. So we know what we can build. I think it's time to look at how we can build on top of the IPFS Filecoin. Then I'm going to talk about some of the toolings. I think you probably already heard a lot of like NFT storage, Web3 storage, and I'm going to cover it here. So basically, there are many ways to use IPFS Filecoin. For example, you can directly communicate with IPFS node and as well as Filecoin nodes. But those will require you have a deeper knowledge about IPFS Filecoin and how to communicate with them over the APIs. But there are also other options that you can use is the storage helper, what we call storage service. Storage helper and the storage service will give you the ability of use IPFS and Filecoin just over the single core to store your data on both network. So IPFS, you can get the faster and the flexible retrieval, and then using Filecoin, you will get long-term verifiable storage. So I would highly recommend hackers or developers are building for this hackathon, trying to get to know some of the storage helpers instead of going directly into Filecoin and IPFS nodes. So let's look at a couple of them. The first I will introduce is Fleek hosting. Fleet hosting is a decentralized way to host your website, so you can fully make your application, your website, go decentralized. So you can think of it as a CI/CD tool, and then it's super easy and simple to use. So if you deploy your website in the Web2 worlds, use Vercel and other platform, you will be able to use Fleet hosting very easily. But the difference is Fleet hosts their website on IPFS, so it's completely decentralized. And then the process of using it is very similar as Vercel. Basically, you just connect to your code and then adding some configurations, and eventually if you have any push, they will deploy to IPFS immediately. And then Web3 storage. I guess you guys already heard about Web storage a couple of times. And Web3 storage is building on top of both IPFS and the Filecoin. And it's giving you the ability to use the decentralized service. And it was very fast and then very good UI UX, as Polygon mentioned, that UX is very important. So it's super easy to use, and you basically just integrate either JavaScript library or Go library into application. And then you'll be able to use the APIs, simple code, like for example, Web3 storage.store, and then putting your files in there, it will automatically store your file on IPFS and Filecoin. And if you are building an NFT, and NFT storage is the best option to go. It's the free service that you can use currently thanks to the Filecoin Plus program. And it's also storing your content and your NFT asset over the Filecoin and MPFS network. What is different as Web3 storage is it takes care of all the dirty works to upload your content on the IPFS and also creating the metadata compatible with URC 721 or URC 1155. So you will be able to use single core to upload your asset to IPFS and Filecoin network and getting your metadata, which you will store in the smart contract. And also, NFT storage provide the fast speed of a gateway. So then you retrieve you'll be able to use that gateway to retrieve your NFT way faster than any other NFT gateways. I mean, another IPFS gateways. Currently, we have a lot of data, a lot of NFTs stored over NFT storage, already over 60 million. And then NFT storage are being used by a lot of projects like if you mint your NFT on OpenSea, all the data of the NFT will save to IPFS and Filecoin automatically through the NFT storage. And also like Magic Eden and a lot of the NFT platform like Metaplex on Solana is also using NFT storage to store the data. So if you're building an NFT application, you can look up on NFT storage. And if you are developers that are looking for more flexibility, more control over your nodes, over IPFS selection or Filecoin storage provider selection, you can try PowerGate. PowerGate is more developer friendly, and then it's essentially a Docker image which bring the IPFS and Filecoin node together. But instead of wrapping around the service, it also gave developers the options to configure the network. For example, like which storage provider I want to use, how many copies I want to store on IPFS and Filecoin, and then when do I want to renew my storage deals on Filecoin. All this can be configured through PowerGate. But with NFT storage and Web3 storage, you're losing those flexibility because they will take care of you. But if you are you want to have your control of the storage deals and then storage over the IPFS, PowerGate is the option to go. And apart from that, we have other tools like Astray is also building on top of IPFS Filecoin, but it's meant for more meaningful data because they will verify your usage and making sure that you store a meaningful data on IPFS Filecoin. So if you want to use a decentralized database, you can go with the OrbitDB. OrbitDB is a key value pair database for built on top of IPFS to provide a peer-to-peer decentralized database. But if you are looking for more complex, more structured and a relational database, you can try with the Tableland. Tableland will provide the relational and the highly structured database on IPFS and the Filecoin, and also it's going to be used EVM compatible layer 1, layer 2 smart contract to record everything. And also ceramic that Polygon also just mentioned earlier, that you can have a ID and then computation data if you want trying to use ceramic. And I think those are the tools that I want to introduce, and I highly recommend all the hackers and developers to use to build on top of the IPFS Filecoin during like a couple of days of the hackathon. And if you want to keep learning or keep building after the hackathon, we have you can check our Slack or Discord and then go to the website of IPFS.io and then Filecoin.io to look at the document. And we also have a protocol school which will dive a little bit deeper on different knowledge, like how P2P work and how content addressing, how DHT table work. And also, if you want to learn more about NFT, we also have NFT school giving you basic information, knowledge about NFT and how to mint NFT on different blockchain. And if you want to keep building, and you can look up at our website, hackathon.filecoin.io. We are sponsoring a lot of the hackathon cross globally, and now we are here with ETH Seoul. And at the same time, we have like Infinity Hackathon happening in Singapore, and we just finished a great hackathon with HackFS. If you're interested in building with Filecoin and IPFS, definitely go check out the hackathon website. And we have a lot of exciting events are coming up. All right, thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here, and hope you guys have a great building during the hackathon. Thank you.